There are two pieces of metal and a patch of wet ground. That is all. No fuel, no solar panels, no generator, no moving parts, no utility bill. Two different metals pushed into moist soil generate a steady, continuous, measurable electrical current that flows without any external energy input, without any chemical fuel being consumed, and without any mechanical process driving it. The reaction is spontaneous. The physics are immutable. And the $150 billion global battery industry has spent the better part of 2 centuries ensuring that the words Earth battery never once appear in any consumer product catalog, any survival guide, any emergency preparedness manual, or any off-grid living publication anywhere on Earth. Not because the technology fails, because it works. Because it works using materials that cost less than $2 at any hardware store. Because it works using an electrolyte that covers the entire surface of the planet for free. And because a power source that any person can assemble in 20 minutes from copper wire and galvanized nails pushed into the ground behind their house cannot be metered, cannot be monopolized, cannot be patented, and cannot generate the recurring revenue that a $150 billion industry requires to survive. So it was erased, not banned, not discredited, simply removed from the conversation 1 generation at a time until the technology that powered telegraph lines across miles of open countryside in 1841 became something that 99% of people alive today have never once heard of. A camper in northern Maine assembled a 20-cell earth battery during a week-long backcountry trip using copper wire strips and galvanized steel nails purchased before departure for a total of $437. He pushed the electrodes into the forest floor at his campsite, connected them in series with salvaged wire, and ran the output through a $2 voltage regulator purchased from an electronics supplier. Over 7 days in the field, he charged his phone 3 times and ran an LED lantern every night from dusk until he fell asleep. The forest floor provided the electrolyte. The copper and zinc provided the voltage differential. The laws of electrochemistry provided the current. His total energy cost for 7 days of off-grid power, $4.37, spent once on materials that could be packed out and reused on the next trip. The portable power station he had considered purchasing before the trip weighed 10 pounds, cost $340, needed to be charged from a wall outlet before departure, and would have required a solar panel to recharge in the field, a solar panel that does not function under forest canopy. The earth battery worked under every tree on the campsite, day and night, in complete darkness, without a single component that could run out of charge or require replacement. The global battery market generates over $150 billion in annual revenue and is projected to exceed $400 billion within the next decade as electric vehicle adoption accelerates. That extraordinary number is built on a single foundational premise, that electrical energy storage requires complex, proprietary, expensive manufactured components, lithium, cobalt, manganese, nickel, specialized separators, precision electrolyte formulations, that can only be produced by industrial processes at industrial scale and sold to consumers through distribution networks controlled by a small number of vertically integrated corporations. Remove that premise, and the entire market architecture becomes optional rather than necessary. The average American household spends over $150 per year on disposable batteries alone. Multiply that by 130 million households, and the disposable battery market alone represents nearly $20 billion in annual consumer expenditure on a product category that is, by design, consumed once and discarded. A technology where the electrolyte is the ground you are standing on and the electrodes cost pennies per cell is not a product opportunity within that business model. It is an existential threat to it. And so the earth battery was treated the way every existential threat to a profitable industry is treated, not with confrontation, but with silence. No camping retailer stocks earth battery components. No emergency preparedness guide lists the materials. No survival manual published in the last 50 years includes the construction instructions. No hardware store employee has ever been trained to suggest it. The knowledge did not disappear because a generation forgot it. It disappeared because the economic infrastructure that would normally transmit it, the product catalogs, the retail shelves, the training manuals, the magazine articles, the television segments, all of those transmission mechanisms are funded by the industries that profit from you not knowing. The information exists in chemistry textbooks, in 19th century patent archives, in declassified government technical documents, and in the electrochemistry curriculum of every university physics department on Earth. It has never been secret. It has simply never been placed where anyone would find it by accident. And that is a distinction that matters enormously when you begin to understand how much money depends on your continued ignorance of a law of physics that has been operating without interruption since the formation of the planet. Before I show you the science and the construction, I need to stop and tell you something important. What you are learning right now is one piece of a much larger archive of suppressed knowledge that I spent months collecting and placing inside the complete forbidden camping vault. The full Earth battery blueprint with exact electrode specifications, series connection diagrams, soil condition guidance, and voltage regulator sourcing for phone charging and LED power applications. The $3 tannic acid formula that permanently converts rust on any metal surface without sanding. The $1 zinc sulfate liquid that kills roof moss permanently in 72 hours. The $1 oxalic acid powder that removes every category of bathtub stain without scrubbing. The $1 linseed oil protocol that makes any wood permanently waterproof from the inside. Over 12 guides in one vault, no filler, straight to the knowledge they spent generations making you forget. The link is in the description. But stay right here, because the history of the Earth battery is about to take you somewhere that changes the way you think about where electricity comes from and who decided you should have to pay for it. Let me take you back to where this story begins, further back than you are expecting. To the ancient city of Ctesiphon near modern-day Baghdad in approximately 250 BC, where archaeologists working a site excavation in 1938 uncovered a clay jar roughly 5 inches tall. Inside the jar was a copper cylinder surrounding an iron rod, suspended in what had once been an acidic liquid, grape juice, vinegar, or fermented fruit extract, based on the residue analysis. When researchers at General Electric constructed an exact replica and filled it with grape juice as the electrolyte, it produced between 1.5 and 2 volts of steady electrical current. The Baghdad battery, 2,000 years before Alessandro Volta published his electrochemical pile in 1800. 2,000 years before Thomas Edison lit his first bulb. Someone in ancient Mesopotamia understood that 2 dissimilar metals separated by an acidic liquid produce electrical voltage, and built a working device to exploit that principle. The application they used it for remains debated. Electroplating of jewelry and decorative metalwork is the most widely supported theory among archaeologists who have studied the artifact. What is not debated is the measurement. The device produces electricity. It has been replicated dozens of times in independent laboratory conditions. The result is consistent and confirmed. 2,000 years before the battery was supposedly invented, someone had already invented it. Move forward 21 centuries to Edinburgh, Scotland in 1841. A clockmaker and inventor named Alexander Bain is working in a small workshop with an obsession that borders on mania, the relationship between electricity and timekeeping. Bain is not wealthy, He is not connected to the scientific establishment. He has no university affiliation and no corporate backing. What he has is a garden behind his workshop, a coil of copper wire and an iron rod, and an afternoon of curiosity that will produce one of the most important and deliberately forgotten patents in the history of electrical engineering. He drives the copper wire and the iron rod into the damp Edinburgh soil several feet apart, connects a wire between them, and attaches a galvanometer. The needle deflects, not a flicker, a steady, sustained deflection indicating continuous current flow from the Earth itself. Bain files patent number 9363 that same year, the Earth battery. He uses it to power his electric clock designs, and then he scales it up. By 1843, he has demonstrated that Earth batteries can power telegraph transmission across significant distances without any conventional power source. The telegraph is the internet of the 19th century and the infrastructure connecting cities, nations, and continents, and Bain has just proven it can run on dirt. The implications should have been civilization changing. They were not, because the telegraph companies had already invested heavily in centralized power infrastructure, and a distributed self-powered network was not something a centralized infrastructure business could monetize. 50 years after Bain's Edinburgh Garden experiment, a farmer named Nathan Stubblefield on a property in Murray, Kentucky, takes the Earth battery concept further than anyone before him. Stubblefield buries metal coils in the ground around his farm and connects them to a device of his own construction. On a cold January morning in 1892, he invites witnesses to his property, picks up a receiver, and they hear his voice transmitted wirelessly across the farm without any wire connecting the transmitter to the receiver. No conventional power source, no battery of the commercial kind. Earth batteries driving the entire system. The local newspaper covers the demonstration. He repeats the technology publicly in Washington, D.C. in 1902, transmitting voice across the Potomac River in front of witnesses. No major company invests. No government program funds further development. Stubblefield dies alone in 1928, penniless. In a shack on his own farm, his devices scattered and his patents expired. The pattern is consistent and instructive. Every time the Earth battery produces a result that threatens the emerging centralized power infrastructure, the result is acknowledged, documented, and then systematically ignored until the inventor runs out of resources and the technology disappears from public memory. Now let me show you precisely why this works, because the science is not speculative and it is not fringe. It is first-year electrochemistry taught in every university chemistry program on Earth, applied to a freely available natural electrolyte that covers most of the planet's surface. The principle is called galvanic reaction, named after Luigi Galvani, who first documented the spontaneous flow of electrons between dissimilar metals in the 1780s. When two metals with different positions in the electrochemical series are placed in an electrolyte, any liquid or material that conducts ions, electrons flow spontaneously from the more reactive metal to the less reactive metal through any external conductor connecting them. This electron flow is electrical current. It requires no external energy input because it is driven by the difference in chemical potential energy between the two metals. The reaction is thermodynamically spontaneous in exactly the same sense that water flows downhill spontaneously. The system moves toward a lower energy state and releases energy in the process. Soil is a natural electrolyte. It contains water, dissolved mineral salts, organic acids from decomposing biological material, and billions of soil microorganisms that enhance ionic conductivity as a byproduct of their metabolic activity. Every handful of forest floor soil is a chemically rich ionic medium perfectly suited to drive galvanic reactions between metal electrodes. A study published by researchers at the University of Wisconsin in 2017 measured sustained current output from soil-based galvanic cells over 90 days of continuous operation. The cells showed less than 12% output degradation over the entire 3-month period. A conventional alkaline battery loses up to 20% of its charge sitting on a shelf unused over the same interval. The United States Department of Agriculture has published soil conductivity surveys showing that most forest soils in North America have electrical conductivity between 200 and 800 microsiemens per centimeter, well within the range needed for effective galvanic output. The dirt under any average campsite is already a functioning electrolyte waiting for 2 pieces of metal. Here is exactly how to build one. Go to any hardware store and purchase 14-gauge solid copper wire and standard 3-inch galvanized steel nails. The galvanization is a zinc coating, your second electrode. Cut the copper wire into strips approximately 6 inches long. Find a patch of ground with moist mineral-rich soil. Forest floors, garden beds, and areas near streams are ideal. Avoid sandy or extremely dry soil. Push 1 copper strip and 1 galvanized nail into the soil approximately 4 inches apart and at least 3 inches deep. That is one cell producing between 0.8 and 1.1 volts depending on soil conditions. Now connect them in series. Run a wire from the copper strip of cell 1 to the zinc nail of cell 2, from the copper of cell 2 to the zinc of cell 3, and so on. Each cell adds its voltage to the total. 10 cells produce roughly 8 to 11 volts. 15 cells push past 12 volts, the standard threshold for USB device charging. Add a voltage regulator costing under $2 from any electronic supplier, and you have a functioning phone charger powered entirely by the ground beneath your feet. Total material cost for a 20-cell system capable of charging phones and running LED lighting, under $5. Setup time, approximately 20 minutes. The portable power station that achieves the same result costs $340, weighs 10 pounds, requires wall outlet charging before departure, and cannot recharge under forest canopy. The earth battery weighs nothing, costs $5, works day and night under any canopy in any weather, and the fuel source is the entire surface of the Earth. You now know something that the $150 billion battery industry has structured an entire commercial civilization to prevent you from discovering. Electricity does not require complex proprietary manufactured components. It does not require mining lithium from disputed territories or refining cobalt through supply chains that span 3 continents. It requires 2 different metals and wet ground, a combination that has been producing electrical current continuously since before the first human civilization built its first structure on the banks of the first river. Alexander Bain knew this in 1841, standing over damp Edinburgh soil with a copper wire and an iron rod. Nathan Stubblefield knew it on his Kentucky farm in 1892. The craftsmen of ancient Mesopotamia knew it 2,000 years before either of them. And the $150 billion industry that sells you alkaline batteries at a 1,000% markup over their material cost has spent 2 centuries ensuring that your generation never once connected the physics in your chemistry textbook to the ground beneath your feet. That connection is now made. Share this with everyone you know who has ever paid a utility bill or thrown away a dead battery. Every share preserves what the energy industry tried to erase. Subscribe and stay close, because the next vault opens soon, and what is inside will make this one look like the introduction.